5,000 sailors, 2 galleys, and 8 months in the middle of the ocean. That's the reality for servicemen aboard the world's most expensive aircraft. The USS Gerald R. But what makes this vessel so impressive is the way just about 100 culinary specialists are tasked with a massive 3 million meals in those 8 months. These cooks are the lifeblood that fuels every single sailor and allows them to carry out their mission to the best of their abilities. Yet, it's just the start, and by the end of this video, we will reveal their secret to cooking 14,000 meals per day. So, before we dive in, make sure you type "proud" in the comments section below and show your love for the men and women who spend months away from home, bringing peace and liberty to the world. Galley efficiency. The one notable thing that stands out on the USS Gerald R. is how it was specifically designed for efficiency. Compared to traditional Nimitz-class carriers, the Ford only has 2 galleys. A major shift from the 5 usually found in ships like the Harry S. Truman or George H.W. Bush. But these modern galleys are not what you'd expect, and they are designed entirely for efficiency with some of the best state-of-the-art equipment that would put any 5-star restaurant to shame. Imagine an oven that cooks meat to the perfect temperature at just a touch of a button, or commercial-grade mixers that mix enough dough to bake bread for a small American town. This is what sets the Ford-class carrier apart from anything in the world. But to understand exactly how it works, we need to dive deeper into how a 2-galley conglomerate system really works. One of the first differences that makes it so efficient is the centralized system design. Unlike the Nimitz-class carriers, everything is largely centered on one massive facility located in the middle of the vessel. The main galley is so efficient that it feeds sailors from 3 different directions. So, everyone on the ship can basically just conglomerate in the middle of the vessel to receive their meals. So, what about the second galley? Well, it is closed for the most part, only opening on specific locations when the air wing is aboard. But it is the true quality of the food that really makes the sailors and crew smile. No longer are they split into different kitchens, where officers might get better quality meals. If a captain gets a freshly cooked steak, an enlistee will get the same kind of meal. The same even goes for things like baked goods and desserts. Everyone is treated the exact same aboard the Ford carrier. And this has made everyone feel much better about their meals. Now, keeping everything fresh and ensuring the quality of meals are top-notch might seem difficult. And it is. But the Ford-class carriers have found a clever way around this challenge. The greatest culinary technology in the world. What truly makes these kitchens so efficient is how automated many of the processes are. Unlike your typical restaurant, where each steak needs to be manually cooked to order, the culinary specialists on the Ford know exactly what they will be serving and how much of each. This makes it really simple, and the cooks can simply load the meals, whether it be chicken, beef, or fish, into the oven, press a single button, and it will cook the meat to the perfect temperature. The same applies for steaming vegetables or making any other dishes, ensuring that the cooks have time for preparing some of the most skillful dishes. Since these ovens are steam-powered, they don't rely on the power generated by the vessel, also reducing the strain on the nuclear reactor below. Even more, they are self-cleaning, which means that at the press of a button, the entire system will clean itself and be ready for use for the next meal. Thanks to this method, cooking 14,000 meals in 24 hours is not that challenging when compared to cooking the same quantity on the previous generation of Nimitz-class carriers. But now you might think that if everything is automated, why do they still need specialized cooks? And wait until you see what the crew really thinks of this massive operation. The heartbeat of the galley. Without the men and women who dedicate themselves to serving the sailors, nothing would work. These cooks are specially trained to operate this machinery, where they are taught for weeks how to cook the perfect meals. The traditional day starts with breakfast, usually served between 6 and 9 a.m. Sailors queue through the ship to receive their meals, which can vary, but usually include a hearty breakfast of eggs, bacon, some bread, and, for dessert, they might even get a donut if they are early enough. Yes, these sweet treats often leave the kitchen faster than a hornet launching from the flight deck. Once breakfast service is done, there is no time to rest, and the cooks need to start preparing for lunch. But unlike many citizens, lunch isn't just a simple sandwich with some turkey or ham. It can be a classic, like tacos, or even some Korean barbecue. The crew goes out of their way to treat the sailors who keep America's most expensive warship operational. The same applies to dinner, which is usually served in the evening and can once again include classics like ribs, steak, or even some grilled fish if that has been supplied. Now, you'd think spending a full day in the kitchen would mean that it is shut down overnight, but that isn't the case. Since a carrier operates 24 hours a day, they need to cater for the night shift, known as midrats or midnight rations. These meals are not just simply leftovers from the day. It is carefully planned meals, usually prepared by a smaller crew. It basically means that no matter what time of the day or night you rock up to the galley, you are likely to get some kind of meal. The United States currently estimates about 2,800 calories per sailor per day, which seems like quite a lot if you work an office job. But since these sailors work extremely hard with crazy hours, they burn through quite a lot of fuel. So, the crew will work in shifts, usually 6 to 8 hours, spread throughout the day to ensure that the galley is always staffed. When the air wing arrives, the second galley opens up. And this might force some crew to work overtime, but since it is stocked with the same equipment, the cooking fluidity continues once again without a hitch. So, what happens when they run out of supplies? This is where American ingenuity is truly taken to the next step. Underway replenishment. The reality of a city at sea is that popping into your local Walmart or butcher to replenish supplies is not possible. Even worse, these ships only port once every couple of months, and even then, it is usually just to change sailors. So, ensuring that enough supplies are available for the ship to function is extremely important. And when it comes to logistics and resupply, no one has mastered the art as efficiently as the United States. Thanks to something called UNREP, or underway replenishment, the Navy is never short on food or supplies. These missions take place every couple of days or couple of weeks, depending on the mission of the main vessel. For example, carriers stationed off the coast of Yemen when the United States were fighting with the Houthis required more frequent resupply missions, not for food, but for military supplies and ammunition. On the other hand, quieter deployments have fewer UNREP missions, with one haul usually taking place every couple of weeks. And this means that should something run out in the shop or galley, the crew will have to make do without it until a resupply mission arrives. UNREP usually involves a vessel with cargo moving to the aircraft carrier with the attempt to shift the items on board to the other vessels. Once the cargo ship arrives and its escort peels off to wait for the unloading, it will pull up right next to the carrier. No one is slowing down, as there is no time for stopping. High-tension cables are strung between these vessels, and the cargo is transferred across. Sailors will help with packing, and some heavy lifting equipment might be needed for some of the stock. Usually, it will all be put in a central location or storage room, allowing for the store operators and the chefs to simply head to the storeroom and get whatever they need for cooking. This naturally means that fresh meals, food, and supplies are always available, unlike submarines, which often need to load their entire supply before starting the mission. They also must rely on canned food in the later days of a mission and before returning to port. For heavier equipment, such as ammunition, the carrier is equipped with its own helicopter. And this isn't just for emergencies. Since the high-tension cables cannot always transport the supplies, it helps to have a helicopter to do the heavy lifting. since this is one of the most vulnerable periods for the carrier and its escort vessels. Everyone is on high alert, and the process can be completed in a couple of hours. Everyone works together efficiently to ensure that the process is completed in the shortest time possible. But what about sailors with special dietary needs? The special menu. No one person is the same, and while the Navy tries to treat everyone as similar as they possibly can, it is not always possible. Some sailors might have allergies or specific religious beliefs that need to be accounted for. For example, serving someone who eats their food halal, pork might not be the best option. The United States Navy doesn't discriminate, and they try to prepare meals that fit every specific dietary need and ensure that every sailor aboard is fully nourished. Moreover, medical requirements are also followed, but the Navy usually doesn't need to deal with anything serious aside from allergies. Yes, sailors are screened and vetted before each deployment to ensure they will be able to successfully survive the deployment. If someone is suffering from serious medical complications, the likelihood of them even being on the vessels is extremely low. As for allergies, well, these are usually special requests that the cooks need to deal with, which can often be a real pain. However, it is necessary that each person gets the food they need to survive a 6-month stay aboard a U.S. Navy vessel. Medical specialists are also on board, and these active personnel are trained both in combat and medical efficiency. They will deal with problems regarding food, or when someone does have an allergic reaction. Moreover, a sailor can be extracted and transported to a real hospital if something happens that requires them to do so. But also keep in mind that sailors undergo basic training before deployment, which is also where they are screened. This gives commanding officers an idea of whether someone has what it takes to survive a deployment. Everything needs to be considered to ensure that the journey is smooth and that everyone is taken care of. And in a moment, I'll show you exactly what the crew thinks of this. But the special menu goes deeper than simply the needs of sailors. Since these men spend months aboard a carrier, they often must deal with missing holidays and special celebratory moments. This is where the Navy truly steps up and treats its sailors. Thanksgiving at sea might feel like a tough time, away from family, just a few phone calls from friends and the other sailors, the only people around you. But by the orders of the captain, the entire crew is usually given a few hours off. The cooks must work overtime during this period, preparing special meals for Thanksgiving, like turkey, brisket, and even some barbecue. It is one of the busiest days in the galley, as these cooks pull out all the stops to make the day feel as special as they possibly can. Once the special meals have been prepared and served, dessert is usually next on the menu, and it takes the same level of effort for the crew to create these masterpieces. In fact, working in the galley of an aircraft carrier is more of an art than anything else. A high-pressure situation where one mistake could lead to big problems for the crew. So, if the meals are not what the sailors want, what are the alternatives? The shop opens. Recently, the United States Navy has begun adding another facility to the naval vessels. But this facility has only a single purpose, which is to improve the quality of life for sailors. Ship stores, as they are often referred to, hold essential items such as toiletries, snacks, drinks, and even essential electronics. In fact, losing your mobile charger at sea can be detrimental, but when you have a shop you can replace it with, it becomes a big quality of life upgrade. Unlike your local supermarkets, these stores only have the bare essentials, like soft drinks, energy drinks, ramen noodles, and a few quick snacks. Sailors like the ramen noodle section, which serves as a supplement when sailors don't enjoy the specific meals they've been fed from the galley, whenever sailors work late shifts and they miss meals. This also serves as the ideal stop to replenish some much-needed calories. Unfortunately, these stores cannot be manned 24/7, which has meant that those working during the operating hours might miss out on the opportunity to grab a quick snack. Fortunately, Uncle Sam has come up with something extra that can significantly boost the productivity of such a small shop. The new self-checkout system works a treat. Now, the store can be unmanned, and sailors simply walk in and buy whatever they need. It also means the store can be open for the duration of the deployment. Well, aside from every couple of days, when one sailor needs to come in and make sure all the shelves are fully restocked. Thanks to the Navy exchange system, NEX, everything operates using a card. Funds can be loaded onto the card and will be used when paying for your meals. This is contrary to eating from the kitchen, where you are guaranteed 3 meals a day and don't need to pay a cent. However, paying for your snacks on a U.S. destroyer is not such a bad thing. These funds are not used for profit, and they can all be collected in the ship's recreational fund. The fund itself provides sailors with more quality of life items, especially for recreational purposes. Movie nights and games are not usually what you'd expect to see on a warship, but the Navy needs something to keep these soldiers entertained. Moreover, products are only slightly marked up, and the Navy also buys wholesale, which means they get regular discounts on some of these goodies. You are also likely to only see U.S. products on the shelves to ensure that local businesses remain fully supported. If you don't enjoy the shop, vessels such as the USS Carl Vinson now even have a Starbucks, which is the most American thing you can think of. Sailors can pop in for a quick coffee, ensure the caffeine is running high, and return to their job. There is even some speculation that other fast food services could be potentially added to these vessels, making them feel like home as much as possible. But what do the actual sailors think about living on such an expensive and massive vessel for so long? What the crew thinks. As great as all these amenities and menus sound, deployment aboard one of these vessels is nothing when compared to luxury cruise liners. Luxury cruises go all out to make your stay feel as comfortable as possible and ensure that you leave a good review in the end. But when it comes to a naval warship, it is something entirely different, and there are no people to clean up after you or make sure you have unlimited food. It takes incredible mental fortitude and knowing that meals are the closest you'll come to home for up to 9 months. Carriers are highly regimented, and unlike many other jobs, shifts run 24/7. In fact, there is always someone manning something, and this can take its toll. The Navy puts sailors through rigorous training, although many still make it aboard and then drop out after the first deployment. Fortunately, sailors are deployed every 18 to 24 months. This essentially means that after a 9-month stay at sea, you could spend up to a year or even more with family before setting out for your next mission. The Navy often rotates crew as well, meaning that next time you serve, it might not be with the exact same sailors you did the first deployment. Active readiness drills and numerous exercises are also carried out during deployment missions. For example, the U.S. Navy and Philippines have recently conducted training drills, all aimed at keeping sailors in a state of alertness. In background, these sailors also need to deal with the constant buzzing of landing and takeoffs as the air wing does their missions or prepares for drills. Even more, rough oceans can affect how equipment works, which adds a great deal of pressure on sailors. But dealing with rough seas is not always easy. Yet you never see an aircraft carrier struggle with crashing waves or even getting damaged. How do they do this? Well, check out this next video to find out how American ships overcome the toughest weather conditions.